Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm Daniel Torres. And when I'm not hosting this podcast, I'm the Director of Executive Search at Dwyer Partners, recruiting top talents in consumer goods and retail globally, which, by the way, guess who we speak on in this podcast? Indeed, with top talents, leaders, and luminaries in the consumer goods and retail industries. We're now 170 episodes in this podcast. So we probably I have not made the calculation, but probably like a week or a few weeks worth of podcast listening. So do go for it and look through the different episodes that we've done, because I think you'll find some that you'll find more interesting. And remember, we're also part of a family of podcasts, which is headed by the CPG guys in the US. So tune into their show to learn about the consumer goods industry at the other side of the pond. And by the way, we are now 15,000 plus followers on LinkedIn, maybe 16 by the time this goes out. I don't know, but remember to follow us there if you haven't yet. And yes, as you've read in the title and seen in the picture of this picture, I'm not alone here, fortunately. And so I'm very excited to bring someone with a true international background. And he's no other than Mustafa Shamseldin, Category Growth Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of International Foods at PepsiCo. Hi, Mustafa, how are you?
Hello, Daniel. Thanks for the introduction and congratulations on the LinkedIn followers and number of podcasts.
Right. Not bad. Little by little, we're getting there. So we started being very small. Some small group of people put faith in me, like coming to the podcast early on. So it's been great to build this community. And I have to say, I truly enjoy doing it as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best thing, right? When you enjoy it, but also, I mean, it's so interesting to see how things evolve and grow, right? I mean, whether it's a podcast or a brand or whatever you do. So it's always great to hear these stories. So well done.
Yeah, cheers. Appreciate it. So, Mustafa, it would be very interesting to hear, like, from, obviously, I'll leave your LinkedIn profile on the show notes and so on, but it would be great to hear about your career prior to where you are now. So now you're in New York in a big global role, but obviously this didn't come from anywhere. And I know that you started your career in a very different part of the world. So it would be great to hear a bit of a summary of that.
I did. And actually, I'm even an engineer by education. That's actually probably part of the story. I mean, I've been in consumer goods more than 25 years. I started my career in Egypt with Procter & Gamble. After I finished my engineering degree, I always loved, I still do, loved studying engineering. I think it helps structure the mind and helps organize the way you think. But my passion was always building stuff and creating stuff. And I studied design and engineering. And I did a few internships, so I tried to figure out what I want. And I thought marketing was great because it helped you create stuff. So that's what I started doing. I started in marketing in Procter & Gamble in Egypt. And then I've been with PepsiCo now 16 years. So I also started, so I did 10 years before PepsiCo with 3 companies. And then I joined PepsiCo in 2008. And then in Egypt, did marketing, went to Saudi, did GCC marketing, then became the GM for Saudi and GCC, did sales, did e-com, did key accounts. And then last year, I moved to New York to become, like you said, the category growth officer and CMO for international foods.
So you've traded the Dubai skyscrapers for the New York skyscrapers, then?
I'm not sure if they're comparable, though. That is a description, but yeah, I'm not sure they're comparable.
Well, both cities are like long, no? That's just something they have a bit in common.
That is true. That is true.
And tell us about like your current role now at PepsiCo, because you have on one side category growth officer, on the other side CMO, and then then you're doing that for international food. So also interested to know more about the specific business unit.
Of course, I mean, listen, the evolution of CMO to category growth officer is at the core of what I do, and it's why I took over this role, and I love doing it. I genuinely believe that real marketing and real brand building is about thinking about the end-to-end consumer and bringing all the different elements of the brand and the business together. So that's why we evolved from CMO to category growth officer. I'm still responsible for the brands, all our global brands, which is why the CMO title still is there. But really my passion and my focus is thinking through how to identify the avenues for growth from how we farm all the way to how consumers consume and what happens after that, even when we think about packaging, when we think about post-use. And that involved not just change in title, but also change in structure. So one of the things that happened that changed when I took over the role was bringing all the functions together. So in my team, which we call Global Foods Group, we have marketing, but we also have innovation, R&D, commercialization, design, supply chain, finance, all of them under one.
Wow, interesting. And what is the International Foods Group?
So, we call it international foods because we have a very big business in the US and we have very big business internationally. The US is quite a big and important business, and they have a portfolio that has the global brands and a big portfolio that is beyond the global brands. I still work very closely with the US. So on all the global brands, we work very, very closely. So on Lay's, on Quaker, on Doritos, on Cheetos, we have very strong collaboration. And not just collaboration, actually, we work together on the evolution of the brands. But then I also pay more attention and more focus end-to-end on international.
Got it. So it's basically representing all these power brands, but at an international level versus the US.
And working very closely with the US on the future transformation of this.
Because of course the brand story, the packaging, etc. There's lots. While as a consumer, I see that some packagings are very different in the US than in the rest of the world. There's some others that are pretty much the same, and the brand story, up to a point, it needs to be consistent, I imagine, no?
Absolutely. And remember, the consumer is becoming more global, right? It doesn't matter where you sit. You can access social media and see content from all over the world. So, and the expectation from brands are becoming more global, and the challenges are becoming more global. We do a lot of work on our impact on people, our impact on planet, our impact on agriculture, and these are global challenges. These are not localized to a certain part of.
No, absolutely, and you're right. Like the world is becoming more global. Social media, when we go on it, we see content from people all over the world, and so it only makes sense. So, in your role, this is an interesting question, but what does your day-to-day look like, and what are your top priorities? Because obviously, there's a lot of things that you could be doing in this role, which is huge.
Yeah, that is true, but also because I have all the functions together, and I think I have a great team and a diverse team, and we can talk about that. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I believe makes a huge difference to my team, but also, in my view, to the future of business. My priorities really, you can break them down into 4 big buckets, right? So one is what I'm calling the transformation of our brands. So we have big successful brands. We have some of the biggest brands on the planet, but these brands need to evolve, not just in how they market to consumers, in what they stand for and in their impact. So across all of our brands, we're thinking through what we call positive impact or positive choices. So we're on a journey of making them healthier, making them better. A lot of stuff that consumers see, a lot that they don't see, but not just in the product, also in thinking through the impact on agriculture. We are one of the biggest buyers of agricultural products in the world. And we have a direct impact on the future of food and agriculture. So,
yeah. And I have seen, by the way, like PepsiCo doing quite a lot of, at least the content around that. Like I think it's Pepco Plus or something like that.
PepsiCo Plus.
Basically, yeah, exactly. Where you're basically like doing programs together with farmers and like agriculture and so on to have a positive impact.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was in Cannes a couple of weeks ago, and just as an example, our team in India have this incredible program called Smart Farm, where they use technology to help farmers identify issues in their land, where to allocate their time, because and using satellites to identify where you need irrigation, where you have challenges, and it has a significant impact on the output. We also invest a lot in this concept of regenerative farming. The future of the world of food depends on regenerative farming. Probably people don't pay enough attention to it. This idea that we have to protect the soil and we have to prepare it for the future. And that could mean things like even changing the crop that you take out of the soil and changing it every few years, or depend on technology or the practice. And we work with farmers to do that, because we believe the future of the world, the future of food in the world depends on regenerative farming, and we invest a lot of energy and money there. So that's the first bucket.
Yeah.
So about our brands, and the point that you said, how we talk about it is one of the biggest things. So we can do a lot of work with farmers. We can do a lot of work on taking out sodium, taking out fat. I mean, making our products even adding whole grain. And we actually went out and made an announcement a few months back on this idea of diverse ingredients, this idea of adding whole grain, billions of servings of whole grain to the global diet, because we believe we should and can have an impact on the world of food and nutrition. So that's one bucket. The second big bucket is, I want to say, transforming our portfolios, thinking about how the consumer is evolving, thinking about new needs that are emerging. I mean, we spoke about diverse ingredients on the core, but thinking about products, the future of baked products. We have a baked portfolio. How do we think about giving consumer solutions that are based on new technologies? We have baked, we have popcorners, we have popping, and we have a few of these technologies, and we are shaping the future of foods using these technologies. So there's a lot of work on the future of future portfolio. The third one is transforming our occasions and how consumers can think about and consume our products.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we just give an example on farming and the products. I mean, we buy. We're probably the number one buyer of potato in the world, and our products really are as close to real as they can get, and they can and should play a bigger role in the overall human eating experience and overall human diet. I mean, they can be part of meal occasions, they can be part of away from home occasions. So there's a lot of work on how we think about current and new products that enable us to expand into these culinary meal occasions. And there's a lot, and we can talk about that if you want. There's a lot of work and insights foundations that we need to build, understanding local food culture, what are the top dishes, what do people expect in meals. I mean,
it's an amazing topic.
Yeah, and I love your background, given that you lived in different countries and you experience different cultures. You know that every culture has very specific and unique expectations on food. And the idea of meal and what's in the meal is very different by country, right?
You just need to take a plane from Barcelona to London and you'll see a big difference already, right?
Yeah, and that's not a long distance. I mean, imagine taking Barcelona to China or Barcelona to Egypt, right? That's even a bigger difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and then I think there's a fourth priority you have. Still a fourth. There's already a lot.
Of course, and that's our team and our organization. I mean, that takes a lot of my time and energy. I mean, enabling getting the right team, building diversity in the team, and diversity, obviously gender, but also background. I want to say regional background, educational background, experience, and enabling them and helping them step up. So I believe, and I call that as a priority and a big part of my job. And I believe my role is to make sure I have the right team and enabling them to do their best work. And I'll use an example that I'm very proud of. Recent, we just got out of Cannes. I told you we were there a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we should have met up. By the way, I was there too.
Yeah.
Next year we should meet up.
We should. I would love that. I would love that. But this year especially was quite special because it had we had received the largest number of Cannes awards ever for our global foods global food business, and all of them were on big campaigns on our big brands. And really, I believe that's an output of clarity on strategy, but also the quality of the team and enabling upskilling creativity, right?
Yeah, how do you actually, that's a good point, because how do you guarantee there's a diversity? And as you said, being a global company is not only of gender, it's also like nationalities. orientation, ages, and so on. How do you rally all these people under the same umbrella?
That's a great question. And that's why I call it at the fourth priority, right? It takes a lot of my mind space.
Yeah.
So first of all, there has to be intentionality. So when I took over the role, obviously I'm Egyptian. I'm an engineer. I worked in different parts of the company. I did sales, I did franchise, I did a lot of different things. So I understand how important that is in building your career and how it enables you to get different perspectives. I mean, before I came to New York, I worked from Asia all the way to, Europe and across different parts of the world. So I believe in that. And one of the first things that we decided to do as a leadership team with HR is make a decision on opening up the aperture for what talent, internal and external, we bring in. So we now have representation from every single sector in the company, right? So we have people from Latin America, from Europe. We have people from Pakistan, from South Africa, all of them part of the global food team. And that is, I actually track it. Significant change in people who just worked in the US, which is important because it's such a big business and we need to learn. And we've added people from different parts of the world. We've also added people with different backgrounds and experience. So, the transformation team is led by someone who has marketing experience, but also worked on Amazon and worked on e-com, right? Mm-hmm. We brought in someone who was in digital commerce to lead our culinary work stream, right? The beauty about this is we know what we want to achieve as a team, but we know also that we need a different set of skills that complement each other to achieve that. So the more diversity we have in background, in experience, in education, and in region, the better the quality of the creative. That's my view.
Yeah. And how do you see this whole, basically it's a transformation agenda that you're leading in the International Foods Group. How does that tie into PepsiCo's greater mission and purpose?
It is probably one of, it is right out of the book of PepsiCo Positive. Mm-hmm. PepsiCo Positive is all about positive impact on people and planet, right? And we need to do that through our brands, through our products, through the supply chain of our brand. And foods is, I won't say at the forefront of it. All the whole company is behind it, but foods is at the forefront of it. I told you a little bit about what we're doing on products, right? We have been on a journey of just taking out sodium and giving even greater flavor experience with less sodium, with less fat across the world. And in some markets, we've taken all the way up to 40-50% out of the salt of the product, and it's better taste, just as an example. And we have examples across the world from different. Quaker is another great example where we've been on a journey to just improve the world of nutrition and how people start their days, right? So that's one. And the second one is the impact on the planet. Agriculture is an example, but also we think about everything from the life cycle of our packaging. Now, I know let me be honest, it's not an easy problem to solve. And I know a lot of people would even ask, are we going fast enough? Are we doing enough? But I can tell you, it's such a big thing on our agenda. In fact, as a company, we have announced targets on the reduction of plastic and reduction of virgin plastic. And that applies not just to beverages, but also to foods. And there are obviously challenges involved. I think about that a lot. It's a big part of my agenda. So there's the impact on planet. We also think about the impact on people beyond just the product. Our brands touch billions. Yeah. And this is billions of consumers a week, not a year, Daniel, a week. It's a huge privilege, but responsibility. So every opportunity we have to make the world better, we should take through an authentic approach that means something to our brands. Quaker, I'll give you the Quaker example. It's quite recent. We know that Quaker has the ability to improve people's lives, because if you consume Quaker, you have a very strong start for the day, and it helps you get better nutrition, better heart health. And we think there is something there around telling people that Quaker allows you to unleash the goodness from within. And we created this great campaign on You've Got This, one of my favorite campaigns. It's now running in multiple markets across the world. And it's a story around not just the product, but the humble heroes across the world. And it tells a story about son and the father, or son and the mother in some countries, and how Quaker with the humble heroes in your world, and Quaker is one of those humble heroes, it's not the only one, can improve the world by giving you the right nutrition and by giving you the right start for the day, along with everybody, a lot of people in your life. And we have examples across. I mean, Doritos has been a champion of diversity and inclusion across the world, has been a champion of just breaking the biases that exist in the world. And we have quite a few examples across our brands.
Yeah, it's a great thing, when you can drive that social impact while not only being like that type of corporate CSR program, but also that you can actually use your brands to rally values and you can find that mix. That's fantastic, because you're like building and evolving and transforming your brand story while making a positive impact. I mean, that's when the magic really happens. And you were talking about flavors and different approaches and so on. So growing up, and I think in Spain, it's one of the most popular snacks. One of my favorite Lays were the jamon. Well, they were not Lays, they're Ruffles. So they're like Ruffles, which are like the undulated chips that are like jamon, which is like Spanish ham flavor. And I think they're one of the best-selling ones in Spain. But obviously, it's not a global brand, but you want to keep it in Spain because they sell well and the consumers love them. So how do you mix that, like we were talking now, like global brand building and consistency with local heroes and that duality? And I also think of India, for example, where you find the masala Lays, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me even build on that and tell you that the masala in India is different than the masala in Pakistan. So we have masala in countries, but the expectation of masala is different between India and Pakistan. Listen, it all boils down to understanding local food culture and local food rituals. And we have a deep-rooted belief in our need to be local and to understand food culture, which we are building on. So one of the things that I've been doing with the team the last year and a half is we even launched this big global insights understanding on what we're calling food foundations, which is about local rituals. I mean, not just flavors, but even how people eat, what time people eat. I mean, you're in Spain, you would know that people eat at completely different times than the UK, right? Just to give an example. And what they eat is also different. And what they eat in seasons is also different.
And how much they eat at every occasion.
Exactly right. So, I mean, we are getting more science, but also the feeling behind it. Because, I mean, I love the word that food is life. And to understand people, you need to understand their food habits. So we were investing in it. But back to your question on flavors. I mean, Lay's is a brand that is rooted in real ingredients, but is expressed through great tasting flavors, right? Great tasting flavors are such an important benefit, differentiator of Lay's. And we invest a lot of time and energy in identifying these flavors, usually, and it's a very interesting process. We actually start with a local flavor. So when we create a flavor, we have this process where we actually work with chefs and understand what people like, what they eat, what are the trending dishes, and we create the flavor, the dish, not just the flavor. And based on the dish, we work with R&D to take that dish based on, I mean, whether it has paprika or jamon or shrimp, and there are examples from across the world, salted egg in some markets. I mean, we really have flavors that are based in true food culture and taking that flavor and translating into a Lay's flavor.
Are there any flavors or any particular flavor that you could think of that would surprise me?
Quite a few. So salted egg is actually one of our flavors in Asia that you will be surprised. I mean, we have seafood flavors that are everything from shrimp to crab in some markets. So yes, I mean, Lay's, especially on Lay's, because I mean, food habits and food preferences are very different. I mean, try masala in India and Pakistan at some point, and you'll understand what I mean.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'll have to get hold of them somehow. So you mentioned that the food business, and from PepsiCo's communication, you also see that, PepsiCo obviously is the iconic drink, but it's become much more of a general foods company. Why is the foods part so important for PepsiCo as a corporation for its future growth?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Pepsi brand is the name on the door. It's a very important brand. But our foods business is is even, is equally important, and actually in many parts of the world, it's even bigger than a beverage business. We are truly a food and beverage company. Our US foods business, our international food businesses are big and successful. So foods, both businesses are important, but foods and beverages together, if you think about it in how the consumers experience or the consumer occasions, most of the time they go together. In most of the occasions, you have food and beverage, you have snack and beverage, you have meal and the beverage. So it makes sense that they work together because they're in the same occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you think of in terms of growth, it's also good to have like that wideness as a corporation of categories to be able to go for one sector or the other. I think that in a time where we're seeing a lot of companies go more narrow, I think that having these two big buckets has been PepsiCo's strength in the last few years.
Absolutely. And I would say that in some cases, the lines between food and beverages are even being blurred, right? So people who are seeking a specific functional benefit can go get it from, let's say, protein, just to pick an example. You can get it from a beverage, as I am doing now, or you can get it from a snack, right? And so even within the same occasion, within the same need, it can be a combination, or one of them can replace the other.
Absolutely. And how would you say that some of your iconic brands at PepsiCo, like we mentioned Lay's, Doritos, Quaker, have transitioned like PepsiCo into a more foods company? If you can give an example of like how these brands have actively played a role to become like more of a food and beverage company, more than like a beverage company with some snacks on the side.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe start with the fact that we are already quite a big foods company. Lay's, by the way, is the largest brand in the world in savory snacks. It already is, and exists in as many countries as most of the global brands. I think it's 180 and counting. Now, on how we're transitioning into foods, maybe I'll comment on how we are thinking about taking our business, which is primarily in snacks. It has a lot of occasions, a lot of use in foods. If you are familiar with the UK, one of the biggest occasion for crisps is the name for snacks. They're chips in the UK.
Yeah.
Sandwich. It's a very strong ingrained habit that when you have lunch, you have a sandwich with chips on the side, right? In many of the European countries, Southern European countries, the aperitivo moment is with chips, right? So
that's the sacred one. Like before, we eat at 3, but at 1:30 or something like that, we meet for a drink or Pepsi, and you have some chips and so on and so on. So yeah, definitely.
And I hope it's Ruffles or Lay's in your case.
Most likely.
Good.
The extra crunchy Lay's were very successful lately.
Yeah. So there you go. So these are also not just snacking moments, but they're bigger food moments. And we're even taking it further by thinking about how our brands and products can play a role beyond just the snacking occasions that they are today. They already exist, but we're taking it further. And the example I refer to is what we're doing on, let me take Doritos as an example. So Doritos, one of our biggest brands, one of our most iconic brands, we believe can play a much bigger role than just the triangle chip. So one of the things that we have already started and we're piloting is this idea of the Doritos loaded experience at drugs. In fact, around the Champions League in London, we had an actual Doritos truck where people could go and you would load your Doritos. The idea is, Doritos is a brand that is all about bold self-expression.
Mm-hmm.
And it should enable you not just to express yourself in life, but also through food, because it is at the end of the day a food brand. So we created this platform where you have a Doritos base and you can add on top of the Doritos base, load it with what you like, and you can buy that from a truck, but you can also do it at home. And a lot of consumers already do that. And the idea is it's true to the brand because it's about expressing yourself through what you want to add to the Doritos, but it's an incredible food experience. When I was in London, I actually couldn't get one because the line was too long.
Wow.
And I had to stand in line like everybody else, and I actually couldn't get one. And let me close by saying, if you ever want to try it, you should also do the Doritos with ice cream. Yes,
Interesting.
that is the reaction I expected.
Doritos with
Yeah,
ice
and
cream.
I guarantee you, it's a great experience. You see, it surprises you in a way that creates a special connection with the brand, but also allows the brand to play a bigger role in the food occasions.
Yeah, I'm sure that TikTok and these social networks have had something to do with that expansion, which by the way, if we see each other in Cannes or wherever, maybe we can do a second episode on like, because all these brands that you're talking about, I mean, they have like so much potential for social that like, that would be a whole other episode of like how you like engage, like, yeah, like influencer marketing and new ways of marketing to really, because these brands, you need to connect with the young people, and PepsiCo has successfully done that during decades, right?
Yeah.
So that would be a very interesting second conversation, I think.
I mean, 100%. And if you remember the four things I spoke about, this idea of occasions, we have a team that is now thinking about how our brands evolve, but how we communicate with consumers, not just on social media, but the reality is food is the number one topic on social media and online that people talk about or search. It's not by the way sports or music, it's food. And we are, I mean, we have the biggest food brands in the world. We want to engage more and also learn from it more. So that's the big thing on my agenda.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So potential part two at some point, Mustafa. So there's this question that we ask all our guests on the pod, which is, you were talking at the beginning about like your career path and so on, and now we've talked a lot about like what you're currently leading, but I'm sure there's been a lot of lessons learned on the way, some good ones, some bad ones. But if you had to go back to yourself when you first graduated and you were going into the workforce and you had to give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Don't be afraid to fail is my biggest advice. I mean, and I know it's very easy to say, but every time I look back at everything I've learned so much more from the things that didn't go well versus the things that went well. I mean, I work with startups. I mean, there's something I'm very passionate about, all parts of the world, all different industries. And failing is actually like a badge of honor in startups. It really is a badge of honor, right? You tried, you failed, next time you're going to get it right. In building a corporate career, there is a fear of failure that I think if you allow it to become too strong, it actually impacts your career negatively. And I've always shared hundreds of examples of things that didn't go well, products that I launched that failed, campaigns that were complete disasters, or businesses that didn't succeed or didn't do well until we turned it around. Don't be afraid to fail. It's such an important part of growth, personal and professional growth, that it's underestimated, I think.
Yeah, and also if you have that agility to innovate, innovation means failure, right? At the end of the day, because it's a test and learn thing. So Mustafa, I'm gonna try to summarize in a few words the conversation that we've had, because that's what we do always at the end of this podcast. My key takeaways. First of all, like just to underline how like the whole category mix has changed in big FMCGs, where for you like CMO plus category growth, so CMO and growth has really merged into the same thing, and you're truly managing a multifunctional team that's really thinking of things and looking at the future, transformational brands, portfolio, occasions, so important in food. And also I love that you mentioned as one of the big buckets in your priorities is really like look at your team and really make sure that you have like a winning team and with the best mix and with the best organizational structure in terms of functions. I'm sure that's a big thing as well. The importance of like PepsiCo positive, of like, yeah, making an impact through PepsiCo and its like footprint in terms of like, yeah, potatoes and agriculture and so on, but also like really like using and leveraging your brands as a rally for change. The importance of being global, which is great, like power brands, let's do global campaigns and so on, but because we're in a global world. But ultimately, the strength of having like local brands that are deeply anchored, one that's worth keeping in mind. Also seeing a lot of brands and corporations that are going like just with global brands. So that's an important one to keep in mind. I love the idea of like the salted egg flavored Lays and also shrimp crab, which sound very exotic, obviously. And yeah, also the importance of the foods business and the whole PepsiCo mix, which we know about. And the last one, I think worth remembering, we probably have to try at some point the ice cream with cheese Doritos, don't we?
I couldn't have summarized it better, Daniel. I really couldn't. We covered a lot, but that's a great summary.
I did my best. I'm sure that when I listen to it, I'll be thinking, well, there's a lot that I could have mentioned more because there was a lot of knowledge here. So thanks so much, Mustafa. That was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, same here. Absolute pleasure. I mean, I can tell also that you understand a lot about the industry, but also you're very passionate about food. That's everybody in the world is, right? Well, everybody talk about food all the time.
You know, there is a minority of people that have told me, yeah, if I could not eat and have a pill, I would do it. But I have to say it's probably like a 5%. So the strange people are there, but thankfully they're a minority. Well, thanks so much, Mustafa. Thanks to our audience for listening to us again, and we will see you in the next episode of the FMCG Guys every Saturday and every Wednesday. Have a great day.